Perspective radio show coming your way this morning at 10 a.m. Central from the historic KCOH TV radio station, The Boost, at the corner of Alameda and Wichita in Houston, Texas. Come join me because we're going to chat about leadership and showing up and getting aligned and getting clear, and taking action and voting and voting and voting and all of that stuff. So join me for some great conversation and a few laughs. And then when we're done, be sure and head over to your favorite podcast platform or to my website, laurelrutledge.com, and subscribe to my weekly podcast, the Rutledge Perspective Podcast. Episodes drop every Wednesday, and they are short and sweet, commute worthy. And I promise you, you'll get something out of every one that will help you shift your perspective. Because when you shift your perspective, you shift your circumstances. See you soon.
Good morning. Good morning. Good morning. Good morning. It is so good to be here. Back in the saddle for the last show of 2022. Can you believe? I can't even believe it, Jerry. It's this is it for 2022. And I'm so happy to be here. I am Laurel Rutledge. You are listening and watching the Rutledge Perspective Radio Show live here on KCOH TV Radio, The Boost in Houston, Texas, in the historic Third Ward. The station itself is 60 plus years old, right, Jerry?
Yeah, 64 years.
64 years old here on the corner of Alameda and Wichita in Third Ward. And it's just so good to be here. We've actually got sun. While we're sitting in the studio, we can convince ourselves that we actually got some heat, but we don't, because it was 39 degrees when I walked in. And I know your folks in Buffalo, y'all, we are really sending our love to the folks in Buffalo, because that 4 feet of snow, my brain just can't function. 4 feet of snow, and they've lost, I think they said 50 something people now. Please, send them just your thought. There's not much else we can do with this kind of weather with other than thoughts and prayers, but those things are heartfelt. And I personally believe prayer works. So we're just praying that though there are not more people in those abandoned cars and things like that. So Buffalo peeps, y'all, please stay safe. Do whatever you can to stay warm. They're telling y'all to stay off the roads. Please stay off the roads. They said those conditions, those whiteout conditions, people that they're finding, it looks like they just got really disoriented and just didn't know where they were. And they found them in their cars or sometimes just on the streets. So please, Buffalo, please be safe. And I think my girlfriend was in, I think Cincinnati was like -7, or Covington, Kentucky was -7. Where Jenny is, it was -2. I mean, it's been insane. But then it was 50 degrees in Denver. I mean, I don't understand. So it was really cold here too in Texas. And I don't do cold, y'all. I just don't. I mean, I lived in Detroit, went through that madness where we got 27 inches of snow on a Saturday and I was done. So I've lived in Michigan. I've lived in Ohio. I went to grad school in Indiana. My mom was reminding me, I remember sliding down the road on the way to class one day, sliding down a hill. I turned right around and went back home. I'm like, they will not see me in class today. I'm not doing this. So I don't. I've lived it. So now I can say it because I've lived in it. I don't want to live in that. I just don't. And please send out your thoughts. Just if there's something you can do, I don't know. I don't know what I can do, but those folks that are stuck in these airports in Houston, Southwest, bless your heart. Woo. I don't know how you recover from this one. This is going to be a real test of leadership and resilience for this one, and money, because they're going to owe some folks some money. I think the DOT is now investigating what went wrong and whether it was controllable. And Jerry and I were talking just now, and they said they were fully staffed and everything. Of course, the union president came on and said it was all their fault. It's the company's fault. And they said they were fully staffed and prepared, but then the weather hit them. And I don't know that it was so much the weather although the weather was an issue. This is just Laurel speculation. These opinions are just mine, just my speculation. I think, if you look at Southwest and the way they fly, everything has 400 connections, right? I mean, the way their model has just a bunch of connections. And I have to wonder if it wasn't so much the weather itself, but the weather's impact on those connecting airports. And so they couldn't move fleets around, couldn't move crews around because they have so many different places that they're in and so many different flights. And they were even saying, like with the bags and things, that some of those connections can sometimes be so tight that there just wasn't a way to move the people with all the delays and stuff. So when you have that many connections trying to get to some place, I just have to wonder if it was the impact of the weather on the way they fly, right? The way they do their routes. Only time will tell. So just sending out heartfelt as someone who flew a lot in my career. There is nothing, well, let me rephrase that. There are very few things as stressful as getting stranded in the airport. It's one of the reasons I don't fly through Denver now or Atlanta. I just, it is difficult. It is difficult to get stranded in an airport, and then not be able to find, a place. I remember, and I so digress. We are going to get to to reflections. We are going to get to reflections today, reflections in preparation. That I remember in grad school, I had an interview with Alcoa, and I believe I went to, I think it was Pennsylvania, and I flew in to have the interview. And when I flew out, um, my flight got canceled. And I'm in Pennsylvania. This was before I really started traveling for work. I didn't know nothing about this. I was in Pennsylvania. They canceled my flight. I was trying to get a hotel. I finally was able to get a hotel. I walked out to get a cab. And I remember these flight attendants came out and they just like overlooked me and just took the flight attendants. And I was like, oh my gosh. And I saw this guy in like this Lincoln town car. And I went up to him and I said, I need to get to my hotel. And he said, well, I'm not allowed to solicit. He said, but if you can, because I guess it was a specialized service or something. And I remember just praying that I had enough money on my credit card, to get to the place. And he was so kind, and he drove me to my hotel, and I was able to get out. But I remember that dread. I'm this single Black woman in Pennsylvania for an interview, not knowing what I'm doing, not having been there, not knowing nothing. And just those people that show up. And so my heart goes out to those people that are stuck in airports, because I'm telling you, that stress, and those with kids too. Oh, and plus those airport floors, y'all, I can't. I see people all the time sitting on the floors, laying on the no, 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 and no. So my heart goes out to you guys. I really hope that they are able to unwind this. Other airlines, this is your time to shine. Southwest, I hate to say it, but their failure is your opportunity. What are you doing to maybe help people? If you're able to fly, are you able to get some more planes in the air to get some of those people and say, hey, well, if you pay this much and they're giving you your refund, then we'll take your refund or whatever, right? And just fly you for what you paid for your Southwest flight. If you'll show us your receipt, we'll fly you for that amount of money. Can you imagine the loyalty you would build as Delta, as United, as Alaska Airlines, all these other airlines? If you said, if you are stranded and you show us your receipt for your flight, the amount of money that you paid for your ticket, we will fly you for that amount of money to home. Imagine what that could do for loyalty. Good morning, Jenny. Right. It's all about solutions. That's what leadership is about. Leadership is about solutions. I'm just saying, man. Now, of course, if you've got people who've already paid for your airlines, right, and you want to make sure they're flying, take care of your customers. But just think about that. This is an opportunity to jump in and develop some real loyalty, to get some really good press by helping some people get home. So just a thought. Just a thought. Anyway, what we're talking about today is reflections and preparation. I hope everybody had a fantastic holiday. Hanukkah, Christmas. It's now the second or third day of Kwanzaa. Good morning, Mama. Second or third day of Kwanzaa, I think. And I apologize because I don't celebrate Kwanzaa, but I know people who are really, really, really heavy celebrators. So happy Kwanzaa. I think it's day 3. So it was so nice. I was able to go home and spend time with my mom, and I got all the stuff that I talked about on the last show. So we did my brother made rolls. I posted that picture, and they were so good. He did such a good job. He was going to make homemade cinnamon rolls too, but after he did the rolls, he said, I'm not making nothing else. But they were so good. And we didn't realize that he had never made them before. I thought he had made them with my grandmother before, but he said he hadn't. So, because I thought, Mom, now that you're on, I thought that Jay had actually made them, that last batch that she made. I thought he had made them with her. I thought that's why she made them at home, so she could show him how to do it. But that's just my memory. Um, but he made rolls, so we had that. And then my mom made Rocky Road candy, and we had that. And she made her brownies. My mother makes the best brownies in the world. In the world, I'm just saying. So she made brownies, and so we had brownies. And then she made the 1, 2, 3, 4 cake with the pineapple filling. I mean, it was just we did have real food too, but the desserts were on point. And so it was just nice to be home. And it was cold. I mean, it was really cold. So we're dripping water and all that kind of stuff at home to make sure the pipes don't freeze up. And then my cousins made it in safely. And so it was just really, really nice to just be home for a minute. And I so enjoyed that. And I know there were so many people who once again were celebrating a holiday without loved ones, right? With people that they had lost recently, or the first holiday without them. And so, oh, she made date nut cookies too. Thanks, Mama. She made date nut cookies too. Those were really good. Um, so all of the things, it was all about memories. We talked about that before. It's all about creating memories, and those things for us are memories. Memories are instilled in those recipes, and in that food, and in those tastes, and those smells, right? They say that smell is one of the things that really does bring up memories for you. Somebody's cologne, somebody who used to smoke pipes all the time, or things like that. That those things will bring up memories. So we had a really good time, a really restful time, and yeah, it was just really cool. And so as we go into this last week, y'all, this is the last week of 2022. I can't even believe it. Last week of 2022. And even as I drove home yesterday, and the roads were actually really decent until you get to Buc-ee's, which was a zoo. Um, but I was reflecting. I had listened to Stacey Abrams' Lead from the Outside book on the way down. So that was the second time I'd listened to it. So I'm listening to it a third time because there's just so much stuff in there, and just reflecting. And I'm completing year 5 of entrepreneurship. Year 5. I couldn't believe it. Year 5. And March will have completed year 3 of the radio show, right? And year 3 of the podcast. And it's just reflecting on this year in particular was such a year of transition. It was such a year of change, and kind of enlightenment, and getting back to oneself. We heard a lot about that, right? Because we all went through this pandemic thing. I mean, the pandemic really got crazy in March of 2020. Because I remember I had my first show March 3rd of 2020, and then we locked down in April. Actually, the end of March, we locked down. And so Jerry and I kept holding it down, right? And so it was, this is going into, I mean, it was all 2020, 2021, 2022, 3 years of this madness. And now finally coming out of it, but also having that time, being forced into a time of reflection, being forced into a time of being home, being with families. There were a lot of families that got a lot closer. There were a lot of people who decided this isn't it, and they made some really tough decisions because they were forced to reckon with what they'd been dealing with or pushing aside for a long time. Being forced to deal with health issues, being forced to deal with financial issues, just so many things we had to reckon with over these last 3 years. And then in this 5th year for me, a real time to get clear, right? Because it the same thing I work with all of my clients on, and it's just been really interesting. I mean, I know that this is what I'm meant to do. I know it is. I have no doubt. The challenge has always been how you do that, right? How do you serve, right? It's not the what. It's not the what. It's the how that always gets in the way. How are we going to do that? How are we going to show up? How do we make it happen? How, right? Especially because there's the practical. There's still bills to pay. Unless you're independently wealthy, like about to win this $500 million for the Mega Million, right? Unless you're independently wealthy, the how is real. The practical is real. Bills to pay, roofs to keep, windows to fix, right? There's still things that are real and practical that have to happen. And especially with so much, with so many people who say they are experts, with so many people who have the formula, who have the answer, right? So many people who have the thing, and they're really good at marketing and selling the thing. And it's really easy if you are not clear or not certain or not confident in your competence. It's easy to get sidetracked into stuff that seems to be the right thing to do. And I'm guilty of that just as like a lot of other people are. And so it took a good 3 years to 2019, right, to really get into 2020, to really get into the podcast and radio show and all and the voice. And then really this year getting solid on what it is, taking the time to understand alignment, vision, action is it, understanding that it is really about navigation. That's my word. I'm a navigator. That's what I am. I am your chief navigation officer. That's what I am. I'm your navigator. When you are trying to figure out what it is that's causing you pain in your career, what it is as an entrepreneur, a woman-owned business where you have been doing fantastic things, you're building an incredible business, incredible. You've probably even built your initial team. And now things are starting to be kind of weird. What are you going to say? You feel like you need to grow, but how do you need to grow? What do you need to do next? That navigation of all that madness, that's what I do well. That's what I do exceptionally well. I am your chief navigation officer. That's what I am. Jenny, I think that's the word. I'm your chief navigation officer. That's what I do. Right. And it's taken this time to do that. And that's part of my story, right? Part of my testimony is there are people who it's overnight sensation. But 99.9% of people, that overnight took them 10 years to get to overnight. It's because we see the highlight reel. Right. CNO. It's because we see the highlight reel. And it's not the highlight reel that's real. It's all the other stuff. It's sitting into your genius. And so that the importance of reflection, and we talked about this a little bit last year, the importance of reflection is to be able to do so openly and honestly and without judgment. Without judgment. Some of us don't do postmortems on things. We don't go back and look and talk about, okay, what went well, what went bad, what didn't, because we don't know how to do that without judgment. The coulda, woulda, shouldas. If I could have done, I should have done. If I woulda, if this would have happened, all the coulda, woulda, shouldas is what gets us in trouble. Coulda, woulda, shoulda, didn't. Right? It is what it is. It is what it is. And so real reflection enables you to learn. Real reflection enables you to shift and modify and put things in perspective. Put things in perspective for what you really need and want to do, where you want to be, how you want to show up. Reflection is a positive thing. Reflection is a necessary thing, right? And it's not a necessary evil. Reflection is powerful. And I think sometimes we don't do reflection because we're afraid that what we will hear or what we will see will tell us something we don't want to hear. Sorry about that, y'all. I feel like I got a piece of dust or something. I am not sick. Jerry's over here like, I don't know. I am not sick. I do not have COVID. I do not have the flu, nothing. I was fine before I walked in here. I think it's the dust. I think it's the dust. Because the allergies are real. Who knew that you could have allergies, like develop allergies as you got older? I did not know that. I thought you either had allergies or you don't. But I swear as I get older, I get more irritated by stuff. I don't know. Anyway, I guess as your system gets older, it gets less.
Everything's changed.
You're right. Everything is changing. There is a lot of stuff in the air. Hopefully this cold is going to kill off a lot of stuff too. So we're getting ready to be in the 70s next week, y'all. Anyway, the power of reflection is being able to celebrate the wins, celebrate the overcoming, celebrate the fact that you just kept moving. Sometimes that's as much celebration as you can have. You just showed up. You kept showing up. That's a celebration. And the reflection on what did you learn? What did you learn? Because in the learning is power. What did you learn that you want to keep doing? That really worked well. That wording worked well. That when I showed up that way, or when I said that thing, that seemed to resonate. That is powerful. That is powerful to do that. Or, right, what do I never need to do again? Including, who do I need to make sure is in my circle, and who do I need to help be successful somewhere else? Who do I need to move to the suburbs of my village? Like Michelle Obama said, slow ghosting. Where do I need to become less available, less accessible? Where do I need to have that kind of stuff happen? Because it's just time to not be easily available for everybody. It is time to use this reflection opportunity to get prepared. Remember, I said it's about reflection and preparation. You use reflection as the baseline of your preparation, because your preparation is helping you for the next thing, right? Where are you going to move next? What are you going to stop? What are you going to start? What are you going to continue? The thing that is really, when I reflect on this last 5 years, and a lot of things actually, we don't know our own genius sometimes. We don't know our own power. We don't know, we're not always listening to ourselves. And when I went back and started reflecting, I'm like, it has all been clear from day one. And it's all the things I've been doing since I started working. It's always been about alignment, vision, and action. Your words need to match your actions. It's always been that way. It is not unkind to be clear. It's always been that way. You need to mean what you say and say what you mean. It's always been that way for me. You need to tell the truth. You need to tell the truth. Tell the truth and shame the devil, right? Just tell the truth. If you screwed it up, you say, I'm sorry, and you make it right. I remember working for a CEO a long time ago. He said, you know what? If we screwed up, we will apologize and we will make it right. If we didn't, we'll see you in court. I believe that, right? If I messed it up, I'm going to probably admit it before you even realize I messed it up, because that's just who I am. Ooh, I messed that up. Here's what happened. Here's what we're going to do next time. And here's how we're going to prevent it. Just own it and keep it moving. Don't try to sweep things under the carpet. I was, for some reason, because I am who I am, I was reliving some things from my corporate days. And, the first boss I was, and in fact, it was because I was listening to a podcast with the woman, and I cannot remember her name. I apologize. I was listening to Wisdom from the Top, of course. And she is the CEO of Gatorade. And hey, Pete, the CEO of Gatorade. And she was talking about how, and Guy Raz was interviewing her, and they were saying how free she is to talk about her failures. And most people aren't. Most people are really afraid to talk about their failures. She is really open about her failures. And I am too, right? Here's the things I messed up. And even in my very first video, I'm like, look, I have had extreme public failures, right? And I've had extreme public successes, all of that. And all of that gives me the ability to do what I do now. Well, even as she was talking and reflecting on her career, and she was saying how all of those things, in reflection, all of those things prepared her for the next thing. She was talking about how she learned so much from the leaders she worked for, from the bosses she worked for. There was one boss in particular that she just go through walls for, right? He was such a great leader. And how you also learn from really bad bosses. And I remember the guy who threw a book at me in a meeting. I remember I was working for Texas Instruments Military Products Division in Midland, Texas. And I can say these things on air because it's just the truth. I'm just speaking the truth. It's not defamation if it's true. It's not libel if it's true. And I was working there in Midland, and we were in a meeting. The staff was in a meeting. The boss was in there, and he didn't know how to do something in the new system. And I put together these notebooks for training. He picked up this notebook and he threw it at me and said, well, you trained me. And I was like, actually, I didn't train you because you didn't show up to my training. Right. And I remember in that moment thinking, now that could have gone several ways, because I could have picked the book up and thrown it right back at him. And I had witnesses that he did that to me. And I remember walking out and thinking, okay, I'm going to figure out how I'm going to manage this. And this is the same boss that, because I was an accountant at this time, and we had to put things in at a certain time at the end of the month. It's one of the reasons I can't do accounting anymore. That same thing every month, it just makes my brain bleed. And so we had to put everything in, and I was waiting. I had developed a great relationship with this woman in Dallas that everybody else hated, but she was cool with me, because when I called her the first time, I'm like, look, I'm new. I don't know what to do. I want to make sure I give you everything you need from us so that you can do your thing. So just tell me what I need, right? So I had developed this relationship with her, and we've been talking back and forth. I'm like, look, I'm waiting for him to sign off. I'm waiting for him to sign off. I've double checked it, but I don't just want to send. And it was getting closer and closer. We were at the deadline. And finally, I called her and I said, look, I'm just going to hit send. I said, he's still not here. I'm just going to hit send. He came back, running back from me. Oh, my God, we haven't sent it in. We haven't sent it in. We haven't sent it in. And we're like, no, no, no. And I remember Inez Eden, Inez, if you're listening, Inez Eden, who helped me survive that job, was like, let's just send it in, right? And so she had checked it too, because Inez had been there forever. She knew what was going on. And so we checked it all. We double checked and triple checked. So we knew the numbers were right. Sent it in. He comes running back. Oh my God, we didn't send it. Nope, we sent it in. He said, oh, walked into his office, pulled it up, came running. I can't believe you submitted this. This is all wrong. Blah, 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 blah. I mean, just nasty. I pulled up all my stuff. I went back into his office and I said, did you pull array 1 or array 2? Because see, when you put it in the system, this is the old days, you put it in one place as like the draft, and then you copied over the right thing to the right place. He had pulled the wrong one. So he went back and said, oh, okay, fine. And like dismissed me. I was hot. So this is the same guy who threw a book in the meeting, right? I was hot. I walked out. Inez was like, it's okay, just go home. So we packed up, right, went home. I was still hot when I came in the next morning. I came in, I threw my stuff down. I was on my way into his office, and she got in there before me. So I went back to my cube. Next thing I know, he's coming in my office. I'm so sorry. I shouldn't have. Lip service, right? This is the same. I mean, he was just evil. He was just evil. And I remember at one point going into HR, and I finally said to them, I said, look, I am leaving to go to grad school. Y'all know this. I've already given my notice. You need to keep him away from me. I'm only here 2 more weeks. You need to keep him away from me, or I won't ever have to pay for grad school or anything else. And I meant that. I meant it. I'm like, we're not doing this. I am not doing this. I'm not meeting with him. I'm not doing anything with him. I'm not. And it's in your best interest to make sure that that doesn't happen. Right. And so as I was reflecting on this, I'm like, that is not the kind of boss that I want anyone to experience ever. And there was so much that I learned. And when I think about working with my clients and that whole emphasis I put with them on what are your words saying and what are your actions saying? Because your words can be all kinds of lip service. Even in my last role, words can be all kinds of lip service. No, you are someone I trust more than any of the other folks on my team. We know what you're doing. That sounds real good. And you may think I'm boo-boo the fool, but I hear you and I see you, right? And so when I reflect on all of these things that I have been through and have to tell my brain, Laura, let it go. Because see, I replay stuff for years. Let it go. What I have to take from that is I don't ever want anyone to feel that way, and I don't want to be the cause of anyone feeling that way. And I want leaders as they move up, as you build your businesses, because remember, leadership is about behavior, not about position. As you build your businesses, I want you to think about how you're engaging with people. I want you to think about what your words are saying, but what your actions are saying, because when those are not aligned, people will listen to what you say. They will believe what you do. And so as you reflect on 2023 and get prepared, 2022, and get prepared for 2023, what are you going to continue and what are you going to do differently? What did you learn in 2022? Being a lifelong learner is powerful. What did you learn in 2022 that you're going to take into 2023 to increase the level of your leadership, to increase the power and the impact of your leadership? Whether that is your organization or your team and you're 12 levels down from the CEO, you don't have to be in the C-suite to lead. You don't have to have a team to lead. You don't have to have your own business to lead. Leadership is about behavior, not about position. How you show up, what you do, how you engage, the way you deliver work. This woman I was telling you about, who's the president of Gatorade, talked about how, one of the things she did was she showed up and she got to work. She just did the work. Now, there are some other things that come out of that we've talked about, and I'm here in Houston, and I've got a contrary opinion, right? When you listen, when you read things like Lean In, and I read Lean In, and it's a good book. It's a good book. When you listen to some of the things about showing up in leadership that are written by Brene Brown, and people love Brene Brown. I have not read a single thing by Brene Brown. I don't know what it is, right? I have a block. I think I heard her called the queen of shame, or the something of shame, right? And that's not to say I'm not casting dispersions. That's she has some great stuff, and I think she's getting ready to do some stuff with Adam Grant and Simon Sinek or something now, which is that combination is interesting. Um, and I listen to and read some of the quotes and things that she says, and I listen to some of the things they tell people to do and how they show up. Here's the thing: when you reflect on 2022 and getting prepared for 2023, before you go read how everyone else did it, and you should read as much as you can and study as much as you can other leaders. Understand the situation that you're in, right? Remember, I always talk about alignment, vision, action. Understanding who you are, where you are, what you want, and what it takes to get there. That where you are piece, combined with the who you are piece, is really important in understanding what you do and how you execute. You need to know the culture that you're in. You need to know the culture that you're creating. You need to know the market that you're in. And you need to know who you are. If you are showing up as a Black woman in corporate, how you lean in, how you respond, how you just negotiate is very different than non-Black women. It's different for Latina women, right? It's different for white women. It's different for Asian women. It's different for Black men. It's different. It is different depending on how you show up. And so that reflection process to get you prepared for what you want in 2023 is getting really, really aligned with who you are and where you are and what you want and what you're willing to do to get it. And part of that being willing to do to get it is understanding the situation that you're in and being ready to negotiate in a way that makes sense, right? Depending on who you are when you show up, what package you show up in, your demands for salary and how you demand them are seen very differently, right? Another podcast I listened to was a woman who I listen to all the time. She was on Marketplace for a long time, and she does one of the other economic podcasts. I've listened to her for years. She's really good at what she does. And she was talking about how over the years she's been at NPR, I think, and doing Marketplace and her other podcast. I think she said 15 years. Vanek Smith. Why can't I remember her first name? And so she was talking about how, as she reflected on her time there, in this new book she's got, Machiavelli for Women, and I am going to pick it up and read it, is, how she didn't negotiate well, and so much anxiety that women have with negotiating, whether that's negotiating salary, negotiating promotion, negotiating a new job, or being put on a project, whatever it is, that negotiation is so hard and anxiety ridden. And part of that is because of how it is perceived and what can happen to you depending on how hard you negotiate. Because men are expected to negotiate hard. It's not seen as a reflection. It's seen as getting what they want. But there's still a lot of misogyny in society, right? If you're a woman and you're a married woman, why are you negotiating so hard for salary? Because you got a husband who's taking care of the family. What? Wait, what are you doing? Why do you need more money? And she did say some things that I think were critical. And I tell people all the time, especially when you're trying to negotiate salary, for those of you new folks, new out of college, no experience, and you think you should demand 6 figures, one, You do you. If you think that is what you need, then you ask for that. I just need you to be prepared, because the question is going to be, what value do you bring for the money that you're asking to be paid? And that's not your personal value. This is not about personal. That is about what value do you bring to the organization? What does your experience and expertise or vision or whatever, what value do you bring to that for-profit organization that's going to give them a return on their money? Because they're about to invest not only that base salary, but they're investing total compensation, which is insurance, which is benefits, which is 401ks, which is vacation time, which is developing you, sending you to training, onboarding you. There is an extreme investment. That's why turnover is 2 to 3 times. The cost is 2 to 3 times base salary in turnover. So when they get ready to make an investment, just understand, yes, there are some cultural things and there's bias and all that kind of stuff, right? Absolutely. But at the end of the day, when someone's trying to make a decision whether or not to hire and what they're going to pay you, part of that negotiation, and if you want to strengthen your negotiation, you need to have a really strong argument about the value that you bring to that organization. What is the return going to be on their investment in you? That's what they're looking for. So you can go demand that 6 figures, but I'm suggesting that if you are new and just getting out and you don't know nothing yet, I suggest you figure out a really strong story to back that up. Even in today's market where finding talent is hard. And so it's important for you guys to be reflecting on that. Part of reflection for you is, I'm about to graduate. What have I learned? Did I do internships? What kind of projects did I do? Not your grades, because nobody's going to ask you about your degree. They're going to, well, and maybe they should based on what happened with Santos, right? Nobody's going to ask you to show them that diploma. Nobody. Right. In fact, I'm surprised that they're still doing that background check, other than making sure that people aren't lying about what they know. Right. When you reflect, what have you learned? What skills have you gained that are going to be a benefit to the organization you want to join? This is a business transaction. It's a business relationship. This is not a personal relationship. It's a business relationship. And so when I go back and reflect on this year, it is important to understand, even when I look at my clients, what are the things that they are trying to achieve, and what value do I bring to them to get there? What solution am I providing? Right? And then what's the value of that solution that I can give to them? That's the conversation. It's not just because I'm a cool person. I mean, that's great, right? Nice to work with somebody who's a cool person. But this is a business transaction. And if we happen to really, vibe and enjoy each other and support each other's businesses and the impact we want to make, that's just gravy, right? That's the cherry on top. But at the crux of it is a business decision, especially business owners. When you are deciding who you're going to put on your team, when you're deciding where your business is going to go, those are business decisions. You may be emotional about them, but the decision itself can't be emotional. Use the emotion, right? I think Hoda Kotb just interviewed Iman, and she talked about, she always stands up for herself, but she doesn't do it emotionally. She takes the time ahead of time to get all the emotion out, all the nasty, all the ugly, all the crying, all the why me. She gets all of that out, and then she goes and has that very direct conversation unemotionally. She's like, because I'm always going to speak up for myself, but I don't bring it with emotion, because the reality is, especially as women, if you lead with emotion, everybody's brain just shuts off. You're just an emotional woman. And heaven forbid you be a Black woman and have some emotion or have some passion, because then you're just a mad Black woman. Come on, right? All of those biases are just real. But that's why the reflection is important in preparing you for what's next. What happened over this last year? How did you respond? How did you move forward? How did you make it through? And how can you take all of that and prep you for what's coming next, right? Reflection is not about beating yourself up. Reflection is about preparing yourself for the next best thing, the next greater thing, the next beautiful thing that's waiting for you to just show up. The person that's waiting for you to say, here I am, and I can assist. That's what reflection is about. It's about getting ready for your next. We're going to do some shout outs here in a minute. And when I think about next and showing up for you guys, right? And I will still do some of the courses, some of the one-off things. I will still do that and still do some selective kind of one-on-one. Absolutely. But part of the reflection and preparation has been a return to what I said in the very beginning. In the very beginning, I don't want any woman, in particular, any Black woman, to feel like I felt in corporate. Not a single one. Not a single one. And that's about leadership. That's about the cultures you create. I want women-owned businesses. I want those CEOs, because it's not just self-employed. You are CEOs. I want you to continue to lead with your heart, because that's what makes women-owned businesses so good. I want you to continue to lead with your heart, but I need you to act with your head. And that's where I am your chief navigation officer, right? It is that reflection for me that says this zone of genius, of this ability to make an impact, is helping those women owned businesses move into their space of creating these empires, because they make a social impact. They always do. Women who build businesses build communities. It's just what we do. And so how can I impact the ability to have more and more of that? Because the statistics show that while 40% of new businesses are women owned, 2% of venture capital is given to women owned businesses. 2%. So if we can't get the money, how do we create organizations that can then build despite that gap, despite that hurdle? And part of that is being able to be heart led, and head driven. It's a combination. It's a combination. Just because you think through things and are unemotional about things does not mean you can't be compassionate. Compassion is a huge, huge source of power, right? Empathy, a huge source of power. Emotion can be a detriment. Find a place to manage your emotion. Find your tribe. Find your table, as Michelle Obama has. She has her table. Find your table. I have a village. Find your village to manage through your emotion. And then continue to lead with your heart, but act with your head. It is a business proposition. It's business decisions that you're making with compassion to be able to make an impact, but it's a business decision. It's a business decision, because if your business goes down, that team you're building will no longer be there anyway. So you're still negatively impacting them, right? So be emotional, manage those in the right place and the right way, right? And then act in a way that is in the best interest of the impact that you're trying to make. That's what it's about, that preparation, right? Reflection is about preparation. The power of reflection is about preparation. Okay, let's do some shout outs.
We're in Kuwait,
Oh,
Canada, France, Panama, Brazil, Mexico, Germany, Finland, United Kingdom, uh, Kuwait City, Rio de Janeiro,
Rio,
Panama City, Frankfurt, London, Helsinki, Chicago, uh, Pittsburgh, Omaha, Los Angeles, Milwaukee, Atlanta, Dallas, Washington, D.C.,
love it.
Kansas City, Houston, Texas.
I love it. Thank y'all. Thank y'all. Thank y'all. You know
Fort
what?
Bend County.
And Fort Bend County. Y'all, I'm gonna have to put Helsinki. I'm telling you what, Helsinki comes in strong every week. I'm gonna have to pop up in Helsinki, do a pop up. Yeah, Finland. I've always wanted to see Finland. So, thank you as always as we end this year. Thank y'all for hanging out with me in 2022, and I can't wait to continue this journey with you in 2023. Because 2022 has been interesting. It's been a very interesting roller coaster for me. Personally, professionally, emotionally, it has been a crazy roller coaster. Many times, just like many entrepreneurs, I'm like, what am I doing? Let me just go get a job. Because with my expertise, I can write my own ticket. And I know that, right? But I thought, no, right? There's a Laurel, remember why you left. Remember why you left, right? And it's the same thing I encourage all of you to do. For those of you who are in corporate and are climbing that corporate ladder and that's what you want to do, hang in there. Know where you are. Be honest with yourself about where you are and who you're working with and who your colleagues are. Take the rose-colored glasses off and be real about your organization. You can believe in the product. You can believe in the process. You can believe in all of that and still be very clear on who you're working with and who they are. Be savvy, right? Be savvy. Understand the culture, understand what to do. That is the thing that I worry about when our education system, with our education systems right now, that ability to think critically, that ability to engage and interact, as you move up in an organization, it is not about what you know. It is about who knows you, and how you navigate, right? It's all of that stuff. It's all of the back end, behind the scenes, behind closed doors stuff that becomes more and more important as you move up. And you have got to find a way to do that. You've got to find a way to do that. Thank you, Tisa. I couldn't add value without all of y'all. I tell you, for y'all showing up, for Jerry saying yes, for me finally saying yes after everybody was like, "Are you nuts?" Of course you're doing that show. It is so important for you to know who you are. Entrepreneurs, it is important for you to go back and reflect on why you're doing what you're doing. What is it you love about what you're doing? And how do you continue to do that with your people to build a team? Because it's difficult once you get over the hump of hiring that first person, that first team member, right? Then you're like, oh, now I got my team. That's great. But there are milestones along that building a team. There's those tipping points, right? Generally, the first tipping point is about 10 people. The next tipping point is when you get to about 20. The next tipping point is when you get to about 60 to 100 people, right? That's a different ball game, because you are no longer, as a CEO, you are no longer able to be as connected to all the details of every person that's in your organization. And you can feel some type of way about that, right? You're not as connected to them. You can't be. It's just not physically or mentally possible to be as involved in depth with everyone in your organization when you're at 100 people, 200 people, 300 people. It's not. And that's not your role. Your role is to start leading through your leaders that you've hired on, to start delegating more, trusting more, to be setting vision, moving the organization forward, and then having those that you've hired that understand the vision to be able to execute. You've got to find the strength to move out of execution mode into leading and vision and mission mode. And that's not always easy, because we are so tied to the vision and to what we want. And that's good. You have to be. You have to be able to articulate that. And you have to be so confident in it, and so confident in the people that you put around you, that you know they can execute against that. And if they can't, be willing to make a change, right? Hire slow, fire fast. And that sounds callous, but it's just the reality. Hire slow, take your time, make sure you're getting the right people, because we all make mistakes, and don't beat yourself up. You reflect on that. What do I do different? What did I not see? Was I hiring out of desperation because I just had to have somebody? Or when they got on board, did I just say, oh, now I got them, now I don't have to think about it anymore? And you just completely abdicated responsibility, and now you're surprised, right? Reflection. What was your part in whatever situation you have going on right now, right? And then how do I move through that to the next thing? How do I get prepared for my next? How do I get prepared by preparing my team for this next thing, right? How do I start talking to them? How do I start revealing more to them about the organization? That's hard, right? For those who have come out of corporate into entrepreneurship, you kind of get that, right? That whole sharing of the business operations. Because the bigger the organization is, the more that happened, right? Those quarterly meetings about the performance of the organization, because there's bonuses tied to that. So you're having to let people know what's happened, because everybody's planning on the bonus. But if you haven't been through kind of that corporate thing where you are revealing more and more about your organization, it is a little bit more difficult to understand when and how and where, right? It's more difficult to figure out how to navigate those waters. And that's why you get a chief navigation officer, right? Someone who can help you navigate what you're doing. Someone who is not involved in the day-to-day detailed pain. And I don't say pain in a negative way. I mean the pain of moving something forward, right? Because anytime you're building a muscle, there's pain. Anytime you're working out something, there is that pain, that stress, as it's moving, as it's building, as it's growing. That's why you need somebody who's outside of that, right? Who can see what you can't see, because you're buried in it and you're emotionally tied to it. And when you're emotionally tied, you can't always see the things. Like they say, you can't see the forest for the trees, right? It's hard to pull up and pull back when it's yours. And that's why you've been successful, because you've been in the details. Sometimes you got to pull up out of the details. You got to know enough and stay enough close to it. Like Oprah says, she always still signs her own checks. As much money as she has, she always signs the checks. You need to stay closely connected to your business so you know what's going on. but you don't need to be buried in the bowels of the day to day as you move forward. So how do you begin to start navigating that, right? How do you begin to start making that happen? And that's where that reflection comes into play, right? Jerry, as you think about, we've been talking about how, next year might be a little bit different, and it's looking so positive. What have been some of those main reflections you've had?
I reflected over these 2.5 years. Has it been 2.5 years?
Seems like it, yeah.
That less is more.
Mm-hmm.
I've learned to really take my time and be able to get back to what the main vision was for this radio station,
Mm-hmm.
and my own personal vision, and they come together on
Mm-hmm.
a lot of things and see the similarities. So I've learned going into 2023, as I told you earlier today, I said I feel like it's going to be a great year.
Yeah.
And I don't say that like Pollyanna type
Right.
of stuff, because preparation has been made for it to be even a great year.
Mm-hmm.
Thought has been made into it being a great year. Connections, relationships
Mm-hmm.
that are going to be necessary and needful for it to even go even greater,
Mm-hmm.
and to see it expand even more. So I believe if you put the preparation in and the time to really get back, step
Mm-hmm.
back, even taking a couple of days off. I knew times when I wouldn't take days off, but that has
Yes.
helped me stay fresh and focused. I think when we do that
Mm-hmm.
in preparation, because a lot of people like in 2023, but didn't really prepare for what's going
Right.
to take place.
Right.
But if you give yourself some time, like you did when you put your show, your
Mm-hmm.
podcast on a hiatus,
Yes.
those are things that most entrepreneurs or go-getters, they don't like to do, because they're just
Right.
like, am I being lazy? No, it's important to get clear.
Yes.
And get clear directions. And I like what you said earlier on the year, and it's always stayed in my head because that's the way I feel. You said that you don't really like to have employees.
Mm-hmm.
And also, most people in entrepreneurship, they're like, the biggest dream is to have a bunch of employees.
Yeah.
And that's not, I get that, because
Yeah.
you can navigate you better.
Absolutely.
And even if you have to outsource some things,
Yes.
it's different than having the day-to-days of an employee.
Yeah. And it's funny, words matter, right? So when everybody's like, you got to build team, you got to build team. If you want to scale, you got to have team, you got to have team. Well, you do, because you are limited by the hours in the day that you can produce. That is true. But team doesn't necessarily mean employees. We have to be clear with our words. Team can be outsourced, right?
Mm-hmm.
Jenny is clearly like my COO. She's my team. Isabella's my team, right? Now I'm going to have Jay, who's on my team. Buying time, they're my team, right? They are my team. I have outsourced some work, and they're my team. So I am still getting support. It's just I am infusing funding into other folks who are building businesses, right, as support for me. So not only am I getting the team that I need, getting the support that I need, but I'm also doing so in a way that supports other people who are building businesses. That works for me. That works for me. And I don't have to do, W-2s and I-9s, and I don't have to do all that mess, right? Because I am buying services. I am going to businesses and I am saying, here is the service I need. Here's the service contract we have. Here's what we're going to do. And that's the thing, right? And so as you go into 2023, what does team really mean to you? Does it mean employees? If that's your dream, to have like employees and office space, honey, you do you. Make sure you get a good bookkeeper, because you need to be doing that stuff on time. Make sure you're paying all your unemployment taxes and state income tax. Make sure you're doing the right thing if you're going to do that, right? But do that. If your dream of building your business is to also employ people, do that thing. Do that. Mine is to be able to support other small business owners through my business, right? I love that. I love being able to do that. And it enables me to still get the support I need through my team without having to have employees where I have to worry about payroll and have to worry about, getting benefits for somebody. Maybe it's an HR, hangover. I don't want to deal with any of that. I just don't. And I know me. You got to know you. I know me. That will be something that can just drag me down, right? So why do it?
I like the idea of like cherry picking, because you're getting that direct help and that expertise from getting outsourced help. Denise, who owns a daycare, says employees can be a headache sometimes. And that's harsh, sounds harsh to say. But it depends, because when you need that direct help and that expertise and getting it outsourced, to me, it's easier.
Right. Right. No, Denise, you're exactly right. That whole employee thing, you've got to be ready. You have to have good processes. You have to have good onboarding. You have to have good Contracts. Now, again, Texas is employment at will, right? So I'm not talking about, if you got a union, then you got union contracts. But even if you're hiring somebody, you need to be clear. Here's what the rules are to work here, right? Here's how we operate. You want to have rules of engagement that are very clear, that everyone has gotten and received, and you have documentation that you went over that with somebody, get things signed, have employment agreements that are signed, get an attorney. There are some things that I tell people, this is where you need to spend money. You need to spend money on a good corporate lawyer and a good employment attorney and a good HR service, right? They're not necessarily evils. They are preparation to get you prepared for the inevitable that will happen, especially if you got employees. Spend the money to get prepared for the inevitable. Protect yourself and your business, right? Get good insurance, get all that kind of stuff. But if you are going to have employees, just give yourself the opportunity to set it up the right way. Get a good employment contract. If you're in California, you absolutely need an employment attorney. You must. There's so much stuff happening in California. You must have a good employment attorney in California. And I know a few, so call me. Send me a DM if you need a good employment. And there are small business owners. They own their own businesses. They are women. They are attorneys, and they own their own firms. So let me know. I'm happy to support. I also know really good corporate lawyers, right, and IP lawyers. So just saying. You've got to prepare you. And if you want to do employees, make sure you are taking your time. And my dad used to always tell us, if you don't have time to do it right the first time, what makes you think you're going to have time to do it over, right? Take your time hiring. Ask good questions. Trust your gut. Really spend some time with your gut. And then make the hiring decision. And understand that sometimes we just don't see something, right? Be ready to move quickly if it just doesn't work out, especially if you have a bigger team, because you're continuing to keep someone who is just not a right fit begins to hurt your entire team. Right, Tisa? It begins to hurt your entire team when you don't see that. And that will ultimately hurt your business or your department or your organization if you are incapable, unwilling to deal with difficult employee situations. So it is important. It's important. So Denise, I say hang in there. Hang in there. Just make sure you are taking care of what you need to protect yourself and those kids, right? And get good employees. And if they're not good, then help them be successful somewhere else. It doesn't have to be contentious. But if they are not good for your business and they are not a good fit, help them be successful somewhere else. It's not personal. It's business. The impact can be personal to you and to them. But the decision is not personal. The decision is a business decision. And if it's not working, it's not working.
Security.
Security. Call security. Yeah. So as we close out this last show of 2022, I am so grateful, y'all. As I was driving here today, and I was like, God, God is just so good, because I just can't even imagine. I can't imagine 5 years, and I have not I've not been forced to, knock on wood, not been forced to go back into the corporate arena. And it took me 5 years to really get over the corporate trauma. That's just real. And y'all know I'm just real with you on this show. It took 5 years, and there's still moments when I'm like, I cannot believe that they did, right? Because it's not that I've forgotten at all. Not even close. But the ability to use that as a catapult to how I can help impact the leadership impact of others, that's what I'm here to do. I don't want anyone else to feel like I felt. So all of you leaders who are still lying to folks, I'm coming for you. I am. You need to stop lying. Just be real, right? If the organization is one that only promotes folks who act a certain way, just own that and understand the impact of that. But don't pretend to be stunned when somebody leaves or stunned when you get a lawsuit, because it's coming. It's coming. When you mistreat people, when you lie to people, it's coming. Women who are owning businesses, those entrepreneurs, that are more women starting businesses and more Black women starting businesses, I need us to stop treating everybody like family. Stop saying that. You don't want it to be family. That's not what you're saying. Unless you're building a family-owned business. And even then, you got to figure out how to separate family from the business, right? Those are two different conversations. Business conversations are business conversations. Family conversations are family conversations, right? They're two different things. I need you to continue to lead with your heart because that's what makes you powerful. And think with your head because that's what keeps your business moving, right? Lead with your heart and think with your head. Lead with your heart and act with your head, right? That's what gets you to that next level. So reflect on all the amazing things that have happened in 2022. Yes, it's been another tough year, but it's also been another amazing year. We're here. We are here. We made it. We made it, right? And every day that you are on this side of the daisies is a day to do something new, something better, something big, or a day to just exist. That's okay too, because sometimes we need that. And I know that's for me, 2023 is taking more time to make sure that I am continuing to grow and develop. Because if I am, then that means I'm able to do that for you, right? I have to feed me in order to support you. And I am determined to ensure that I do that more this year and to continue to support you guys. So if you know a woman owned business who needs a chief navigation officer, right, who's really looking for that next level, who's really trying to figure out how to make it happen, laurelrutledge.com, there's a way to contact me there. You can go to the contact me form. You can join my mailing list. Let me know. That's one of my things, right? And if you are in corporate and you're just trying to make sure that you can you can make that happen, especially in particular, I want to talk to those of you who've just been newly promoted into the C-suite or a direct report to the C-suite. Been there. That is, the world changes 180 degrees. It is no longer at all, not even a little bit, about your technical expertise at that point. And no one really talks to you about that. And if you've really been focused on getting that promotion, that's fantastic. But once you get it, what are you going to do with it? Reach out to me, DM me. Let's talk about that. That's the kind of one-off, case-by-case, individual things that I may be doing. And of course, if you're in a corporate situation, look for somebody for your organization, for your affinity groups, or just for your leadership teams, to really talk about that alignment of words and actions, how you really show up as leaders, how you help your teams understand where they're going. You know where to find me, laurelrutledge.com. Send me a DM. Let's chat. Let's get on a call, figure out how I can be of service to you in 2023. Much more coming. We're going to continue the Rutledge Perspective Radio Show in 2023, Tuesday mornings, 10 a.m. Central Standard Time, Facebook Live, LinkedIn Live, YouTube Live, live here in the studio. Going to have more guests in 2023, already lining some of those up. In January 17th, we will have the president of the Houston Area Urban League. We were supposed to have her this year, but she ended up having jury duty. So we're going to have her on the 17th. So she'll be in, and we've got some more lining up that I'm trying to confirm. So we'll be here on the radio show. The podcast is going to continue in 2023. New episodes will drop every Wednesday. So be sure to download, follow, all of that kind of stuff. I'll have some more interviews there. And then Fireside. Fireside is probably going to go to twice a week. It's just three shows a week is a lot. So probably going to, not twice a week, twice a month. So every other week on Fireside, and lining up some really cool interviews there too. And that's going to be a show still about alignment, vision, and action. And also a show that is about the things that I really love that just fascinate me. One of those being looking for a linguist. I just sent a note out to him this week. I'm really anxious to talk to a linguist about how we speak as women, intonation, right? The things we use, the words we use, the tone we use, and how that impacts our leadership and our power as we stand in front of groups. So some interesting stuff coming. So stay tuned. I'll be posting. I'll be letting y'all know what's happening. Keep tuning in to KCOH TV Radio, The Boost. Lots of great stuff that's going to be coming on the radio station. Jerry's got some amazing things lined up, so please follow her, Jerry P. Beasley, the KCOH Global Network on Instagram and Facebook too, right? KCOH Global Network. So be sure and follow and support this station, the oldest urban station here in Houston, Texas, and their station with the highest time spent listening. So think about that. Those of you who are looking for advertising, reach out to Jerry for KCOH. Reach out to me if you'd like to advertise on the Rutledge Perspective Radio Show. Would love to have you. Let's see if it makes sense and if there's an alignment for your organization to be a sponsor of the show. Have a great end of your year. Be safe on New Year's Eve. Be safe on New Year's Eve. If you have been drinking, find a ride. There's no shame in that. Find a ride. Be safe, and we'll see you in 2020.
Before you go,
yeah.
What I said is because you're doing something that I think is so necessary, and also for the women,
yeah.
for us as people. You're promoting what you do. And oftentimes we don't promote what we do.
We don't.
And God had to speak to me about that. He said, you never promote what you do. Why don't
Yeah.
you just assume people think you do it?
Right.
And it's time now to really, and once I started doing that,
Yes.
more people started responding like, oh, I didn't know. I just thought you were just doing. I didn't know. And I'm like, this is how you contact me. And so when you said that, even with sponsorships, when you start putting that out more, so people didn't know they had an opportunity to partake in your show and be a part of that. So I want to encourage women, just like you just did.
Yeah.
Let us promote ourselves more and promote others, because that's the way you let people know of services they didn't even know they needed until they heard you call yourself a what?
Chief Navigation Officer. Yes, you're exactly right. And I that's the other thing I'm determined to do, is to let people know what I do. I'm really bad about that. I'm really, really bad about that, because you're right. And it's not so much that I assume people know. It's like, well, if they need me, they'll ask. Well, stop. No, they won't.
No, they won't.
Just promote it. And so, as Jerry said, you can sponsor the show. You can be a sponsor of the podcast as well. There are, if you go to my website, everything is on my website, laurelrutledge.com. And you can go to the radio show and say, I want to be a guest on the radio show. I want to sponsor. And I have different levels of sponsorship. You can go to the podcast page. I want to be a guest on the podcast. Just go to my page and it's all there. And if you don't know what you need, or you think you just want to talk to me, get on my contact list. It'll get you a calendar link and we can set up a call. Not a problem. I am there. Let's chat. Have a great rest of your year, y'all. We will see you in 2023. Thank y'all for tuning in on my show, Jenny, Mama Tisa, everybody who's online, everybody around the world. I cannot wait for 2023. See you then. Bye.
That's right, Denise. Promote what you do.